Good morning, campers, and welcome to Radio Camp Half-Blood, a Percy Jackson read-along podcast. I'm B.
And I'm Zack.
And this week, we read Chapter 2 of Percy Jackson, The Last Olympian, I Meet Some Fishy Relatives.
This just sounds like my regular relatives. It's like, oh, here's some more relatives. Oh, they seem kind of fishy to me.
Yeah, this seems relevant now that we're in November and Thanksgiving is coming up. Some fishy relatives will be coming to your home.
The second that October 31st rolled off, I was like, everyone hide all the skeletons. We got to get down with the turkey. Gobble, gobble. I actually got Rosie like a little stuffed turkey and she's been attacking it and it kind of scares me now.
Yeah, I still have all my Halloween stuff up because I'm tired. Also, I have a lot of Halloween stuff up, so taking it down is kind of an ordeal.
I'm still tired. I'm still jet lagged from like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah. I feel like I'm just still tired from going to the city 2 weeks ago, so we're just like,
How was your Halloween? Before we get into the chapter, we haven't actually talked since then. We've just been so busy.
Yeah, Halloween was good. I was telling you on the actual day, didn't really wear a costume, just sort of wore my Halloween sweatshirt and my pumpkin hat. I gave out candy and I ate some chicken and watched TV. It was a good time.
Yeah, that sounds like a good time. For me, on Halloween day, I hang out with some of my good friends. I dressed up as Nedry from Jurassic Park. I had the Hawaiian shirt and the rain jacket.
Oh, I saw your costume. You really need the Barbasol prop to really bring it together. Otherwise, it's really unclear.
Yeah, it is. I'm just some like fat schlub. I should have I was going to bring like an umbrella so I would like shake it.
Yeah.
That would have been good. But I did the most nerdiest thing the second I got off the plane, B, and that is afterwards, I texted you. I drove to the Puente Hills Mall and stayed up till 1:15 a.m. because Back to the Future Day.
Because Back to the Future Day, yeah. So is that the actual Back to the Future Day, like to the date, or did we already pass that? I forget.
We've already passed that, yes. But pretty much if you go on October 25th, 26th, they go back in time on the 26th at 1:15 a.m. You go to the Puente Hills Mall. There'll be a bunch of nerds there gathering. We take a picture in front of the sign, and then I go home. Actually, I was my friend's DD, so I actually went to the party that I was going to. He was just sloshed, dressed as the Joker. I took him home, and then I went home and slept for like 1,000 years.
I can't believe you did that right after you got off a plane. I would not do that.
I probably should have gone to sleep, but I had that nerd feel in me. It planned out so perfectly. I thought about not going, but it was like, Doc, I gotta go.
Yeah, I think that's the difference between you and I. You have sort of like the nerdy industriousness of someone who like goes to an event because they really want to, and it's like, I'm gonna nap instead.
I'm gonna go take a nap.
That sounds better than that.
But then afterwards, I think I was probably in a nerd coma for many years. I don't even know. Like, when I woke up, I saw the Statue of Liberty on the beach, and I was like, how long did I sleep for? Then I got whipped by the ape overlords, and it was pretty fun. But speaking of fun, B, what did you think of this chapter?
I thought it was pretty good. It's really funny. Reading this, I don't know if it's because, we skipped a week, right?
Yeah, we skipped a couple weeks in October. Sorry, everybody.
Yeah, it's fine. I mean, we had, like, the interviews and stuff, but that sort of, like, made me forget what I had read a little bit. So when I read this chapter, I was like, wait, what happened last chapter again? And I thought that was kind of funny considering a major explosion happens and like a character dies. And I'm like, oh, right, Beckendorf, he probably is dead. So that was kind of a weird, rude awakening to remember all of a sudden that character probably died. And then I felt sort of just as confused as Percy as he's like waking up in the ocean greeted by Tyson. I was like, wait, why is he in the ocean again? For some reason, I was like, is he back at Camp Half-Blood? I don't know. I just like totally forgot the context of what was happening. And then as soon as I remembered, I was like, oh, all that stuff happened with the explosives and the Princess Andromeda. Now I remember. Okay. But once I remembered that, it was good.
Yeah, for me, it was a little different because I actually had to give myself a refresher. So I read the first 2 chapters. And I did enjoy this chapter a lot more than I thought I was, because I remember faintly reading this many, many years ago. I've only read this book maybe twice in my life, and each time was many, many years ago. And there's a lot of parts that I like about it, and then it kind of just ends, and that's something that just happens.
You mean the chapter ends abruptly?
Yeah, it kind of ends abruptly. Like, wait, I thought there was going to be more to this, because I turned the page like chapter 3, and I'm like, wait, I feel like there should be more to this chapter than then. just Percy Jackson and his dad hanging out.
It kind of ends on a downbeat, I guess.
Yeah, it does end on a downbeat, but I felt like we got so much exposition in this chapter, especially it's like being down in the trenches when there's artillery fire at the same time, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I mean, it's not optimistic. There's
No, it's a
lot of
very
sad
pessimistic
moments.
thing.
Yeah.
It reminded me a lot of like, because we have Poseidon who gets like horribly old. He just reminds me of like the ancient Knight Templar in The Last Crusade. It just really, there's some body horror in this because I was thinking about kind of like Aquaman with like the fish people there. You have all these weird fish people. There's the god of the dolphins is there. I thought that was awesome.
Oh, yeah. Well, Delphin or something?
Delphine. No, it's Delphine.
But it's just like a regular dolphin, and then Percy's like, wait, why is he talking to a regular dolphin? There's just like a lot of surreal moments in this chapter. Like all of a sudden, you meet a lot of like these extended relatives.
It still keeps into the tone of Percy Jackson, where it's still really funny, but then you see things like hundreds of thousands of people have already died in this war, and you're just like, oh my god.
Yeah, there's a lot of dark stuff, and that's not even, you're already getting into the stuff with underwater, but even before that, there's this whole thing about demigod dreams and the sort of vision dream that Percy has. That's also pretty depressing, where he sort of feels like everything that he just went through with the explosion of the Princess Andromeda, like maybe not wasn't for nothing, but like kind of didn't make as much of a dent in the war as he thought it would. So that's kind of discouraging, especially because he's pretty sure that Beckendorf died in the line of fire, so it's kind of like even more of a downer when he realizes, oh, it didn't make that much of a difference.
Well, it's more tragic because he always goes through in his head that, oh, Beckendorf probably jumped off at the last moment, then fell 100 feet into the water and survived. Like, there's a lot of like that, we're not survivor's guilt, but it's like that weird thing of like just denial. Like being in denial. Yes.
I mean, I kind of get Percy's state of mind because we've had really close deaths before that seemed like deaths but then weren't. I mean, even right down to what happened with Tyson, there's an explosion of a water vessel. It's a submarine, not a boat, but similar idea, and you think that he dies and then he doesn't die. So it's kind of like repeating that beat, but then you know that it isn't the same thing because Tyson had been established as like impervious to fire, so that's a little bit different than Beckendorf.
Oh yeah, it's a setup and payoff.
Yeah, so it's pretty
Whereas
different.
with Beckendorf, it's almost like the old-timey trope of like having the old person 5 days to retirement and then they get offed off.
Yeah, that's exactly the way I felt, where they specifically set him up to sort of represent a certain loss of innocence. Like he has a girlfriend and he's headed to college soon, and they even mention that in this chapter, and I think that's like a specific way to like make it hit home, like, oh, all of the casualties of war. And then obviously later, when Percy wakes up from his dream sequence thing, he sees even more of the casualties. He's like talking to his dad, and it's like he's all grizzled, and they're talking about all these different people who have obviously been killed in the line of fire, and it's trying to, I think, establish the scheme and the stakes of what's going on.
Yes, and also I was getting kind of like horror movie flashbacks because I think if I remember correctly, canonically, Beckendorf is black, so they've killed the black character first.
Oh, that's not great. I didn't even think of that.
I might be wrong about this, but I think Beckendorf is black.
That wouldn't be great as far as optics are concerned. That's not good. I mean, I feel like that probably wasn't intentional. I honestly don't even know what I had canon Beckendorf as. I just sort of envisioned him as sort of like a brawny guy, I guess. But yeah, maybe as a visual adaptation, like if you were to do this scene, you might reconsider some things. I'm not sure.
Not necessarily. I think it's one of those where like we've had enough characters go by. It's like it's almost.
I mean, other characters have died too, so it's not like he's like
he's not the very first. I might actually be wrong about this, but I've always envisioned Beckendorf as like this really strong, very smart, like black guy.
Yeah, I don't know. Sometimes I forget what is canon and what is just like my associations. I don't think I had a clear picture one way or the other of what Beckendorf looked like. I have a clearer picture of Percy and to some extent Annabeth. I guess anybody I've seen like an illustration of. Is there like an official illustration of Beckendorf?
I'm sure there is. Actually, yes, because there's a comic version of these.
Oh, right, yeah. Let me see what comes up. So yeah,
Wait, let me look it up before you do.
Yeah, no, I just image searched. You're right. He is, I think, canonically black. I mean, again, like, is this just a headcanon? It's in the wiki and stuff, and like seems
Then
to be an
yes,
official
it probably
illustration.
is.
So that probably not the greatest thing. It's like it really changes the sort of optics of when someone dies, and like, I mean, I don't think that was obviously the point of being like, oh, he's whatever. What's the word I'm looking for? Dispensable, like that. I think it was actually the opposite, where he was a character that represented a lot of what Rick Riordan was trying to convey. Like, oh,
he's the status quo of the camp.
Yeah, exactly. Like he's the comfort of the camp. Like, oh, you expect to see him. He's sort of this not a main character, but like a recurring character.
He's been there since day one.
Yeah, and obviously, I mean, they really kind of hammer home all the stuff about like him having a girlfriend and going to college and all of that stuff, like that he had a lot of potential and he was struck down in his prime. Like it's a
tragedy.
It's more of like a Cedric Diggory thing. I think we talked about this before, where it's like, oh, here's a character that like shows, oh, things are escalating, and this person who you thought was like so strong and capable was killed in this really tragic way, like really early because he was so young, and like that adds to the tragedy of it. And then
oh no, B, don't you want to read Cursed Child, where pretty much that's the whole point of it? They Terminator it and try to save Cedric Diggory. It hurts my brain.
Oh god, I didn't even know that happened in Cursed Child.
No, that's the plot of the actual play, is that I think it's Malfoy and Harry's son go back in time to save Cedric Diggory, and they mess up the timeline, and it's dumb.
No. All right. Well, that's garbage, and we're going to move on from that.
But I do like how he's floating in the water, and he's having these dreams again, and I like how he kind of reestablishes, like, man, demigod dreams are so weird, man.
Yeah, the demigod dream thing. So they really spell out that basically all dreams are visions. I think that's what Percy says. He says, the thing is, they're never just dreams.
Well, you have to remember the Greeks, their interpretation of what dreams are is visions of the future and the past. It's how they would make sense of them. That is in their mythology. And how you would have your oracle who is always like tapped into like the cognitive realm. But they're the people that are able to like really solve those mysteries, and they're really able to tell you that stuff, I guess, like soothsayers and things.
Yeah, I definitely think it's intentional that every dream is a vision. I mean, this is the first time that they've spelled it out, but from like the chapters and chapters we've read of different, either it's like a vision, or sometimes it's complicated because sometimes he's like physically like witnessing something that's actually happening, and other times it's more of like an abstract representation.
Well, he's almost like an astral projection of himself.
Yeah, or sometimes it's like a flashback thing. Like in the last book, he had like all those Daedalus visions, so they're not always exactly the same, but they're always magic in some ways, and that's what Percy says. The thing is, they're never just dreams. They've got to be visions, omens, and all that other mystical stuff that makes my brain hurt. So it's like a range of things.
Here's the thing, though, B, is that there is a minor god, Morpheus, who is like kind of like the god of dreams.
Right.
That can interpret things, and maybe he's influencing Percy in this way, especially like the gods, and how they don't, even though they don't play favorites, they play favorites. They're not supposed to.
Yeah.
But I do enjoy how this dream sequence is, because it does show more of the stakes, but also it gets more exposition out of the way quickly. We go back to the spooky Titan camp in California.
Yeah. We get more stuff of like there. I guess that's like a useful tool in a way. We've talked about this, that the dream sequences are kind of the only way to get perspective from someone else other than Percy. I mean, it is from Percy, but like there's no reason that we would cut to the Titan camp and what they're doing unless he was seeing it. So the visions sort of give you an excuse to understand what's happening there. Also, I mean, you were saying the Morpheus might be influencing dreams, but in this case, Nico is probably. He's like manipulating Percy's dream so he can see what's happening, right?
I mean, they've set it up already with the idea of being able to manipulate the mist. Why can't you manipulate dreams in the same way? I'm sure it's the same exact type of thing.
Yeah, well, wasn't Bianca manipulating dreams in the last book a little bit? So
yes, she was tapping into the iris messages, so Percy Jackson was seeing into it.
Yeah, the iris messages, that's what it was. So it was like kind of similar, where it's like, I'm guiding you to this message so you understand what I'm saying, and that's I think
it's like
what
guiding
Nico
a lost
doing.
soul to a beacon, which was in the case of Bianca. She was trying to help Nico, whereas Nico's trying to help Percy now. Though The one thing that I do like about these dream information things is that it works here because you only have one perspective, and that is Percy Jackson talking in the past tense. I guess if he wanted to, it could be like, meanwhile, back on the farm, but he doesn't do that. I do enjoy that where, because this book series it only has one protagonist. It doesn't have multiples like in Game of Thrones or maybe even other books later on in the Rick Riordan stuff. Does it get multiple perspectives?
Well, I mean, I'd say that Annabeth and Grover are also, well, not Grover exactly, but maybe Annabeth. They feel like they might be protagonists, but just because it's not from their perspective, I don't know, it's complicated. Obviously, he's like the title character, but they're sort of like an ensemble cast that they're sort of like the golden trio, similar to like Harry Potter with Ron and Hermione.
So the best way to break this down is that Percy Jackson is the main protagonist because you get his thoughts and feelings. If we had a chapter through Annabeth's eyes or through Grover's eyes, where you actually hear what they're thinking about, they'd be considered main protagonists, but they work in like the ensemble piece, like the Golden Trio. Percy Jackson's the titular character. You get it from his perspective, so he is the main character, whereas the other people, you can think about what they might be thinking, but then you get to Annabeth and you think one thing, but she's thinking like 15 other things at the exact same time about how Percy's an idiot, but yet she loves him. Like there's things like that.
He has a more straightforward thought process, which kind of makes him a good narrator in a way, because he's not always overthinking a bunch of different things, or actually because we've talked about the benefit of him not being expert on things, and therefore it gives the book an excuse to explain stuff because he asks questions and therefore we find out the answers. So that like is very helpful in situations where like he's oblivious and he's being taken on this weird dream sequence by Nico, and then we're even more in the dark than he is actually, because they don't even really talk about what Nico's plans are yet. We've had this like lampshaded like since forever, because the end of the last book, there's this whole weird unseen conversation between him and Nico that sort of cuts to black. And then
we have the Demigod Files, which is the exact same thing.
And then we have the Demigod Files where they like sort of allude to it again and they still don't talk about what it is. And then this time we still don't know. So it's like we keep having this buildup of like, okay, there's some sort of like crazy, very sacrificial plan probably that Nico came up with, because that's what it sounds like, is that it's like a big sacrifice to do whatever plan he came up with. Like it doesn't sound like it's obvious, like, oh, it's really easy and therefore Percy wants to do it. Like, of course not, because then it wouldn't be so shrouded in mystery. Like it's obviously somehow a sacrifice or somehow difficult, but they're not clear about it yet.
I'll preface this by saying whatever the plan is must be something really bad and super dangerous, and whatever happens, there's no going back again once you do it.
And obviously, I mean, Nico has grown a little bit since the past couple books where he was, believing he could bring his sister back and a soul for a soul and all of that stuff. And like he was trying to kind of mess with the natural world and like really use his powers to manipulate things.
The natural order.
Yeah, exactly. And I think he learned a lesson a little bit with Daedalus and all of that he's not so much the kind of person who would, mess up the natural order of things, but that has been his characterization, that he's a little bit more willing to like take risks. Yeah, like Percy actually isn't like that, because he does risky things, but he still follows general rules of like nature. Like he wouldn't kind of try to manipulate everything to his will, because I think he understands that that's like dangerous. While I think Nico tends to make more rash decisions. That's why he wanted to bring Bianca back. Do you know what I'm saying?
So Percy Jackson's more of an irrational person, because there's moments where Percy Jackson fighting Atlas, he held up the heavens just to help Annabeth. And then seems like, depending on what Percy's doing, if his friends are in danger, I guarantee you, if he had to open up Pandora's box to save Annabeth, he would open up Pandora's box.
Yeah, I guess that's true. I guess their motivations are just like slightly different. It's sort of like that thing where there's like a fine line between loyalty and like
stupidity,
sort of, or not stupidity, but sort of like
irrational thought process,
irrationality. Yeah, where it's just like you're willing to do anything for your friends. So I can see Percy doing anything for his friends, but I think Nico has that sort of rebellious streak in him where he just like he feels a certain sense of debt, like he's owed something, and therefore he's like willing to kind of do more obviously risky things. Percy tends to make risks in the moment.
Like this one time that his dad took him to the marching band.
Yeah, exactly. But I feel like Nico is more like, I guess, plan-centric. Like he's thinking ahead of time. He's been stewing about this thing with Percy for a while. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I also don't know what the thing is, but I'm just sort of projecting as to like what it could be.
Here's the problem when it comes to Nico is that originally in the third book, he knows nothing. Now he's a super mega genius that knows everything.
Well, yeah, because he's a big 3 kid. So that's probably something.
Well, yeah, but that's not the problem, though. The problem, though, is that he knows everything when Percy Jackson knows diddly, no matter what he does. Nico's the person that goes off, I guess, into the wasteland and figures out, oh, I have this plan. I know, I guess maybe because he did like mythomagic, so he knows more about mythology than Percy.
Yeah, I think that works enough. Like you could be like, oh, that's a plot hole. Like, why does he know so much compared to Percy? Well, first of all, it's in Percy's personality that he's not that bookish, I guess. He's not very interested in learning about mythology outside of how it pertains to him specifically. I mean, when you first meet him, he's in a Latin class, kind of rolling his eyes, not understanding Greek mythology. Like he's not the kind of person to really like research this kind of stuff. It's just like not in him to he's not like Annabeth, for instance, who obviously Annabeth has also been entrenched in the demigod world more, but she's also just kind of a more academic, plan-based, research-based person. And I think Nico, because he's been on his own, he hasn't been at Camp Half-Blood, so he's sort of had to like learn on his feet. And remember, he's much older than he seems because he was like frozen in time for a while, so he had kind of more experience being a demigod for a while before.
No, he doesn't, because he doesn't realize that he was a demigod until Percy Jackson knocked up on his door.
Well, no, because he knew he was a demigod before that, didn't he?
No, he didn't. No, he didn't. They thought that they were just going to a casino, and they were staying there for a couple of days, and then a couple of days went by, and Percy Jackson...
Hold on. Am I misremembering? Because I thought that
you're
he
misremembering.
Was
He doesn't remember any of that stuff. Because it was in 1930s. They get whisked off to the Lotus Casino. Then the guy takes them out and puts them in the boarding school, and they don't know who they are. That's why I remember Nico gets so excited when he finds out that he's a demigod, because it's just like the game that he played. Like mythomagic.
Right. I guess I'm misremembering it because for some reason I thought that he and Bianca were like existing as demigods for a while.
No.
And then they were kidnapped and like had their memories erased.
No,
as
they
being
didn't
demigods.
even know who their father was.
Oh, right. Because they were like at that weird orphanage or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So he didn't know. Never mind.
So he didn't know. So that's why I have like when I'm scratching my head with that stuff. I guess there's plenty of things. It's not really a plot hole, but it has always been something that's always bugged me about Percy Jackson. Is that Nico has all these plans, whereas Percy Jackson, who's kind of been in this world a lot more, doesn't know diddly about anything, though that seems like that'd be for his best interest, especially if we have a prophecy to end all prophecies.
Yeah, I think just personality-wise, Nico, it makes sense that he'd be more...
Cunning?
Cunning, exactly. Like, I mean, this is sort of...
Oh, God, am I going to use, like, a Slytherin term? I was like...
It's a Slytherin... I mean, well, the difference between him and Percy very much feels like the difference between Gryffindor and Slytherin, where they have, like, the overlap, where they're both willing to do a lot of risky things for their friends, but one is sort of more willing to, like, explicitly break the rules, and that feels like Slytherin, and that feels like Nico, where he's, like, he's cunning, he tends to, like, think on his feet. Percy ends up doing successful things a lot of times. Like he'll take the risk of like what was the time where he like tricks the guy into falling into the river, and then he tells him his name is Bob. Like he'll kind of accidentally do something clever, but it's not like something he'll plan out ahead of time. Well, like I think Nico is much more like premeditated, I guess, in his rebellion.
Well, when it comes to Percy Jackson, his best actions is when he doesn't think, and that's kind of a funny thing and a very tropey thing about Percy Jackson is that he's always on his feet and he improvises his plans. Like, this is the first time actually in this book we find out, the beginning with the ship, they pre-planned this whole thing about the ship, and guess what? It turns all to doo-doo.
It doesn't go exactly as planned, so obviously you can only account for so many things happening before different variables completely throw your plan askew, which is kind of what happened. And that's why Beckendorf had to make the sacrifice that he did, yeah. Because otherwise they wouldn't have had any ability to blow up the Princess Andromeda at all. So
yes, and I think when it comes to this, I like that when you have your dream here, we get the things that get filled up, we meet 2 more Titans, we find out what has happened to Atlas, we find out a whole bunch of things, and then Nico's just spookily there. And I like the whole, how they have the descriptions of the Titans, because I like the one that has like the whole star face. I love that he's the god of constellations, which is really cool.
Yeah, what were the two Titans? Now I need to find what they were.
The only one they ever name drop in this chapter is Krios. And he's really cool looking. He reminds me of like a superhero or a supervillain type of, like, he has like this weird star plane face. And that is something that's really important, especially in Greek culture, is the constellations. So maybe that might play a part in everything. Because how do you tell the direction before a compass? You would look at the North Star.
Yeah, so I think there's the god of constellations, and then there's some sort of like old god that I guess predated Apollo, because that's what he says when he describes him. It's he reminded me of Apollo, god of the sun, except the Titans. Light was harsher and his expression crueler. Yeah, he was dressed in gold robes with golden eyes like Kronos. So I guess he's like some sort of sun god.
Yes, he's kind of like, I guess, before Helios and before Apollo, there was this guy. We'll probably find out more about him, but that just seems kind of creepy that his eyes super glow. I feel like he's going to shoot like laser beams out of his eyes.
Laser beams. Because everybody knows any kind of glowing eye immediately shoots laser beams, right?
Oh no, you have to have that. It's like one of my favorite things is, you haven't watched The Boys. I tried to get you to watch it. But there's a part where there's a super baby that shoots lasers from its eyes, and it's so great.
You mean like Jack Jack?
No, like Jack Jack, but this is more bloody and gory. And what you think is going to happen with this little baby? It's
gory Jack Jack. Something bad.
Something real bad. Even though I love Jack Jack, I love that little short they have of him and the babysitter for the Incredibles one. I think about that constantly. But I do like that they show off like Atlas. He's just like, oh, let me out, guys. Okay, I do it better this time.
Oh yeah, so he keeps calling out like, I'm your best warrior, and they're like, we already gave you a chance and you failed, so tough luck, buddy.
Get out of here.
Yeah,
get out of here.
He had his one chance.
Yeah, because they have to babysit him because he's an idiot.
Yeah, and he has to keep holding up the world. I guess because he'll let go of it otherwise? I don't really know why he has to have someone watch after him, but...
I'm going to do it. I'm going to eat it.
I'm going to eat the sky.
I said yeet, but eat also is a crazy man.
Oh, okay. I thought you said eat. I was like, done with this.
Oh my god, that'd be so scary, especially if he like throws it and the world would collide. Well, I mean, I guess if you think about it, Atlas can end us all now if he really wanted to. Yeah. I'm gonna end it.
Can he die? I don't really know enough about the man.
Well, no, it's the holding the sky, the heavens, and...
No, I know that, but I'm saying... He can't just, like, let go, right? And choose to, like, have everybody die. That's not how it works.
He could. He's a crazy man. He could do it.
I don't really know why he doesn't, then. Anyway, that's a whole other can of worms to open up, so I don't really know. Please let us know if there's any reason why he can't let go.
B, I'm just imagining he's like, I can end these gods' whole career right now.
Oh my god, exactly.
So Percy Jackson wakes up and he's underwater. Oh, hey, Tyson. How you doing? This was great.
Yeah, so I expected that he'd see Tyson because he fell into the water. It seems like every time he falls into the water, Tyson is there because that's where he lives now.
Because he's his boy sensing brother eyes tingle.
Yeah. Well, also that's where he lives is Poseidon's castle.
One of my favorite things about this though, B, is that Tyson's really happy that Percy Jackson didn't get brain damage. Oh, your brain worked.
He's like, oh yeah, your brain is fine, which is funny considering how often Tyson is sort of criticized for not understanding things, but it's like, yes, Percy, your brain is not damaged, at least not too much.
What are you talking about, Annabeth Percy Jackson Grover? Tyson? Oh no, his brain's got the damage.
Percy can't do with that because he's pretty bad at observation skills, so we don't need him to like hit his head.
Well, actually, if he hits his head, he's gonna become a super genius. What are you talking about?
Who knows? Let's give it a shot.
B, it's like when you hit a pothole and your check engine light turns off.
Yeah. That's happened to me before.
So I like that they're underwater. I like that Percy Jackson instinctively can breathe underwater, not drown. And I like the
even
whole
when he's sleeping, he just automatically breathes, which is good.
Yes, that would be terrible if this opened up and he was just dead. And then I drowned.
Yeah. The irony of that.
Yes. And I like that they take him to pretty much Atlantis. I don't think they state specifically what it is, but it's Atlantis.
Yeah, in an underwater ocean palace. It's funny because they do compare it to the Little Mermaid at some point. What is the line again? Let me find the description.
It's like this really huge, like stoic place, and he's like, yeah, this was nothing like the Little Mermaid.
The main courtyard was filled with warriors, mermen with fishtails from the waist down and human bodies from the waist up, except their skin was blue, which I'd never known before. Some were tending the wounded, some were sharpening spears and swords. One passed us, swimming in a hurry. His eyes were bright green, like the stuff they put in glow sticks, and his teeth were shark teeth. They don't show you stuff like that in The Little Mermaid.
Well, it's funny because when you think about like the ocean, you always think of the cute cuddly fish. But then you get to like the lower bottoms of the sea and just God's mistakes.
Yeah, all the anglerfish and stuff with their spooky bioluminescence and all that.
Oh, I like what is it? The really ugly fish with the nose. It just looks like it's just a blob.
The blobfish.
The blobfish. Thank you. I was gonna say it's called the sad fish, but it's the blobfish.
I mean, it's the blobfish, but yes, it does look very sad. The one that looks like Ted Cruz.
Well, B, there's no proof that the blobfish wasn't the Zodiac killer.
Dun dun dun.
It like pops out the water with a knife.
Yeah, I mean, I'd become murder if I looked like the blobfish.
But it's funny because I was getting flashbacks to the movie Aquaman, where they actually have something very similar to this, where they talk about how when people evolve underwater, obviously there isn't enough sunlight, so people, like their skins and their whole anatomy changes sometimes with having like blue skin.
Right, that makes sense. Instead of it just being like a human with fish legs. Yeah, it's cooler to have a more like biology-based idea, like imagining of mer people.
Hey, I'm all in favor of having the top half being a fish and the bottom half being a person.
Being legs. Just running around with the fish head flopping around.
Unless it's like, you just imagine off in the distance, you'd see the Easter egg like the 13th year. You just see a bunch of like mer people everywhere.
Yeah, that's where he ended up. Get me in the water, Jess. I'm changing fast.
Oh, God. Oh, you have your Disney Channel original movies coming up soon. Mm-hmm. Disney Plus streaming service.
Yeah, all of them. All of them are going to be on there. Exciting.
Oh, God. We're going to end up talking about one a month.
Probably, yeah.
B, I really do enjoy this depiction of Atlantis just because in my brain with this, all the epic fantasy, it is like huge. Because I guess they describe it like being pretty much like Mount Olympus. What did you think of this? Because I think the setting is important because everything else is so horrific.
Yeah, well, it was kind of sad in a way because I was picturing the perspective of Percy, right? And he says something about like witnessing the setting. Hold on. The palace might have been the most amazing place I'd ever seen if it hadn't been in the process of getting destroyed. We swam to the end of a long hallway and shot up upward on a geyser. We rose over the rooftops. I caught my breath. Well, if you can catch your breath underwater. The palace was as big as the city of Mount Olympus, with wide courtyards, gardens, and columned pavilions. So it sounds like really beautiful and sprawling and amazing and ornate, but obviously he's seeing it in the midst of it being destroyed. So that's kind of like a sad image to imagine. Like, he's never visited this place. This is where his dad lives. And he even sort of talks about this in the chapter, right? That if you have a normal parent, quote unquote, then maybe it sounds weird to you how few times that he's seen
he sees him like 5 times his whole life.
Like 5 times his whole life. Exactly. So it's like this weird, bittersweet thing where even when he wakes up with Tyson, he's like, oh, you're at Daddy's palace or whatever he describes.
He's like, he gets really excited because he's never been there.
And he's like, oh, I would have been excited if it was in the context of like, my friend just died and I sank into the bottom of the ocean. And the same thing bummer. Where it's like, he would have been excited to see this like beautiful, opulent place under the waves where his dad lives, who he doesn't get to see that often. And then it's just like in the midst of being destroyed. And then things just sort of keep getting depressing, basically, where it's here's this thing that he's kind of built up in his head all this time of seeing his dad, seeing this place, visiting his brother, like feeling connected to his family, and he ends up just feeling more and more alienated. You know what I mean? Like it's being destroyed. Tyson seems worried because he can't even work. He's stuck in the forges, like fixing weapons, and he can't even fight alongside his dad. Then later on, we'll get into how, Percy's dad isn't looking too hot. And then he meets some of his like weird extended relatives that live in the ocean who aren't too thrilled to see him. Like, it's actually a really sad chapter because you think like, oh, finally you get to go to this place you've always wanted to go to. And like every step of the way, he's disappointed.
Yes. And I think when it comes to this chapter, how I would describe it, especially the setting, because I think the setting in this is very important, is that it's the idea of destroyed beauty. And how you have this very beautiful place and it's being ravaged by war. It reminds me a lot of like, have you ever seen like a burnt out library? It's the saddest thing you could possibly see.
Or like any example of, like the Library of Alexandria. There's all sorts of examples of like a beautiful things in history that have been destroyed because of war. And I think that that's kind of what they're getting at here. Like, here's this like sprawling, beautiful place that's like being completely demolished, and there even is like that mosaic map representation, and you could see all the different places that have been destroyed like in real time. So it like drives home how much things are being completely ruined.
Well, yeah, no, it reminds me a lot of like, have you ever seen pictures of Berlin before the Allies came in, and then
really
afterwards? It's, well, I mean, yeah, it's really sad, but it's one of those where it's like the beauty of man destroys everything at times when you have war. And here it's a lot different because you're fighting Oceanus, and he's just this gigantic, unstoppable titan, and all they can do is hold him back. And it's really weird to have like this weird type of opposing force where a god's trying to kill a titan, and they're pretty much at equal odds, except that Poseidon's getting weaker while Oceanus is getting stronger. And it's really cool and clever how they have this. I think Rick Riordan is really good at setting up description of this, because I could picture this whole place underwater. And the first thing I thought of when I saw this is, oh my God, if they made this into a live action setting, the budget for this would just be blown out of proportions.
Well, yeah, so much CGI, what with like just the setting baseline is really opulent, but then also it being destroyed with all like, the Greek fire and all these like, crazy forgotten gods and like underwater monsters and stuff, like just like a giant squid destroying stuff.
I can tell you the budget of this. Look at the budget of freaking Aquaman, the ending battle scene in that with hundreds of thousands of creatures, both seamen and monsters and mermaids. Like, the ending of that movie made my head hurt because the movie that came out before that was Justice League, and that movie's dumb. And this was like an epic battle to end all battles.
Yeah, no, I imagine it would be very hard to adapt these specific scenes because there's a lot going on. And there's a lot of character stuff too, to be honest, because then obviously, well, I mean, do you want to get into when he finally sees his dad?
Well, yeah, I think we should do that because this episode is going to be 1 billion years old once we talk about his dad and how like he needs some moisturizer.
Yeah, so I might just read the passage. I know this might sound weird to people with, like, regular parents, but I'd only seen my dad 4 or 5 times in my life, and never for more than a few minutes. The Greek gods don't exactly show up for their kids' basketball games. Still, I thought I would recognize Poseidon on sight. I was wrong. The roof of the temple was a big open deck that had been set up as a command center. A mosaic on the floor showed an exact map of the palace grounds and the surrounding ocean. But the mosaic moved. Colored stone tiles representing different armies and sea monsters shifted around as the forces changed positions. Buildings that collapsed in real life also collapsed in the picture. Standing around the mosaic, grimly studying the battle, was a strange assortment of warriors, but none of them looked like my dad. I was searching for a big guy with a good tan and a black beard, wearing Bermuda shorts and a Hawaiian shirt. There was nobody like that. One guy was a merman with 2 fishtails instead of 1. His skin was green, his armor studded with pearls. His black hair was tied in a ponytail. He looked young, though it's hard to tell with non-humans. They could be 1,000 years old or 3. Standing next to him was an old man with a bushy white beard and gray hair. His battle armor seemed to weigh him down. He had green eyes and smile wrinkles around his eyes, but he wasn't smiling now. He was studying the map and leaning in on a large metal staff. To his right stood a beautiful woman in green armor with flowing black hair and strange little horns like crab claws. And there was a dolphin, just a regular dolphin, but it was staring at the map intently. It didn't seem possible. But Dad, I asked. The old man looked up. I recognized the twinkle in his eyes, but his face, he looked like he'd aged 40 years.
So in our headcanon, he would be Jimmy Buffett. This would be his Jimmy Buffett cameo.
Yes, this would be when Jimmy Buffett makes his cameo. Yeah, so this is like, he's a totally different person, I get. And so I guess we learn the world building of that gods don't age, but they look older based on the state of their realm, I guess, is how it works in this universe.
Yes and no. I think it's kind of like the idea of like, it's not grimoire, it's like magic and kind of like concealing what you look like and how you kind of put on a cloak.
He looks that way anyway? Well, is that what you're saying?
Well, he looks like that purposely, but obviously to attract the nice, hunky, beautiful women, he has to be not like a decrepit person that looks like a Skeksis.
No, I think, well, because what Percy says is that because he's a god and he could use magic, that he could look any way he wants, but then Poseidon says, I reflect the state of my realm.
Well, he does reflect the state of his realm, but you also have to think of it this way. He's going to put on the normal appearance that he would probably portray when he's in Atlantis compared to when he's on land. And this is probably when you think of Poseidon, you always think of someone with a beard and white hair when he's in the domain.
I didn't really think of that.
Yeah. Because here's the thing, though. There's a difference between Poseidon in the water and Poseidon on land. If Poseidon from the water
like
walked up,
sort of.
Well, yes, it's
like
his
when
persona.
he's a human, or not a human, but seeming human.
Well, yeah, and think of it this way: like when Poseidon in the water walks up to Poseidon on land, he's not going to look like super decrepit because then he wouldn't be able to pick up Percy's mom unless she's like a gravedigger or something. And she's like, "I like this disgusting prune,
this crypt keeper."
Yes,
yeah.
Unless that's what she fell in love with.
I mean, I guess it's like probably both. It's probably both that he has a persona, but I don't know if that's true because even at like Mount Olympus, he looks pretty similar to the way he looks like around Sally Jackson, for instance. But then I think that a lot of the aging that he is expressing has to do with the state of Poseidon's realm and what's happened with like all the old gods and everything.
Well, yes, and also his concentration is not focused on what he looks like. It's concentrating on saving his realm.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
There's a lot of it, but also it's a good visual representation of like almost like a big boss. Like it's his model is changed to show that he's damaged, just to show that you're weakening him.
That's definitely part of it. I think it's like a physical representation. Like, oh, he's not seeing this sort of like bright-eyed, spry father that he's used to seeing, who's always like kind of like a chill surfer dude vibe. You know, he's like wearing a Hawaiian shirt and all of that. Here he's like wearing battle armor and he looks really like worn out and his eyes are just like filled with exhaustion from like a year of warring with like all the different titans. So it makes sense that he would look different even if he wouldn't literally age. But this is sort of like a more overt representation of that.
It doesn't help that he has seawater on his face and that just damages your skin so terribly.
That's true. Though, if anything, you'd think it would heal it, right? Like Percy, because when he's damaged, then seawater helps. So
no, it's the exact opposite. That guy needs some moisturizer.
It's rejuvenating. Yeah.
He like really like secretly he's like 35, and now he looks like 115.
Yeah. So I thought that this was like a good way of like quickly conveying how bad things are getting. Like they're pretty dire.
Well, obviously Poseidon wouldn't say anything. It's just how he looks. Because even when a person under great stress doesn't matter who you are. After a while, you're going to start looking terribly. You're going to look horribly aged if you're like really stressing yourself out.
Well, he's also like not getting sleep, and I'm sure it's like a lot of things. Like he's physically and mentally exhausted. And it's really funny because it also gives you an opportunity to have Percy act like the dumb Percy that he is, where he's just like, Dad, like, why do you look like that? And like, of course, Tyson is there like, cut it out, like, stop it.
Dad, why do you look like a bunch of dried fruit that I left out on the beach that one time?
Like trash, like probably
you
not
look
the
like
best thing
liquid
to greet your
death.
dad with. Yeah, but then of course, he takes it in stride and is like, yeah, so I look like this because things are pretty bad down here.
Yeah, it's pretty bad, and you're adopted.
Yeah, oh God. If only, then he could yeet out of there and not worry about all the demigod stuff. Oh, so yeah, important note about the two people he's standing with.
Oh, he's got Delphine the dolphin.
Yeah, of course. The head of the dolphins, but it's also...
No, not head of the dolphins. God of the dolphins.
God of the dolphins. Oh, he's... Same thing, I guess. But he also has a son and wife.
Ooh, this must be really awkward, right?
Yeah, super weird. And they'd like just kind of give him the cold shoulder. And like even when he like introduces his other son, he's like, "Oh, here's my son, other son, Triton." So that's
King Triton, yes.
Yeah, Ariel's dad.
Fun fact, if you go to Disneyland and go to California Adventure for the Little Mermaid ride, King Triton doesn't have nipples. It's really weird and awkward.
Wait, why?
Just because he doesn't.
Because they're offensive?
I don't know. No, it's not because of that. Like, he's like really ripped and just doesn't have nipples. It's just funny.
Okay.
Well, how I know you're like 2 feet in front of him when you look at him. You're like, man, that guy got no nipples.
Okay, so he's like a clone or something.
He's like a clone. He's Kyle XY.
No, well, Kyle XY doesn't have a belly button. I guess he would still have nipples. I don't know why he doesn't have them.
But it's funny because you have like this awkward situation, much like Hera and Zeus. You know, you have this weird situation with Poseidon pretty much because, once again, Poseidon's already said that Percy is his favorite son. Oh, this is really awkward.
Awkward. Why would you ever play favorites? That's so bonkers to me that he'd be like, and my favorite son, Percy. Are you out of your mind? You have a bunch of sons.
Well, no, this is his favorite one.
Yeah, oh, this is my favorite merman son, and you're my favorite demigod son. Like, stop it. Stop being weird for a second and just, like, love them equally, you jerk.
Yeah, so they kind of get out of there. Even Delphine, the dolphin, which I still can't get my head around.
Yeah, that is just like a dolphin going, ah! And then it like goes out and like rallies the troops of the
Well,
dolphins.
the first thought I had was I have one joke written for this episode, and that is, I guess Percy Jackson is going to get his gamer girl water.
Oh my god, no. That's a bad one, Zach. I think we should throw that one right in the trash. Jeez.
Hey there, Demi boy. Don't you want your Demi girl bathwater?
No. Nope. I refuse to engage. I refuse.
You're laughing. I got you laughing.
It's funny and terrible. It can be both.
But so what ends up happening is Percy Jackson and Poseidon kind of talk. They have a kind of like a father and son moment. More, it's like, oh man, things are getting bad. Father, I want to fight with you. And Poseidon's like, oh no, I can't let you do that. You're needed on land, much like Aquaman, which is the exact same type of plot. Like, you're needed on land. You walk both land and sea, but I need you there. And I need you to tell Chiron that you need to hear the full prophecy, because our war on the sea is kind of
yeah, full prophecy. A lot going on in this chapter. So we have like the spooky stuff with Nico being like, remember the plan I told you about? And now it's like his dad being like, well, you need to find out the full prophecy. There's all sorts of like unspoken things that we still haven't found out what they are.
Well, there's a lot of unspoken things, but also here's the thing though, B, is that the stakes are so raised because even Poseidon's like, I love you, son, but your war isn't down here, even though Percy's trying to manipulate the prophecy. Maybe this is the big decision. I have to stay down here and help. I mean, Tyson keeps telling me that, I'm a good sword fighter. Maybe I can help with Oceanus, but Oceanus will probably eat him because of a gigantic, like, sea snake.
Yeah, I mean, he'll probably eat everyone. I mean, even Percy admits, he's like, yeah, like, looking at Oceanus and looking at his dad, he's like, yeah, this isn't a great match. This is probably going to end up pretty bad, huh?
Well, yes, and that's kind of the hard thing is like the hero's choice of having, okay, I could stay here and fight and be with my family, but my real family is land. It's the exact same opposite of like the song Brandy.
What song?
Brandy by Looking Glass. It's the one about the woman that's a bartender, and all the people are like, oh, you'd make a really good wife, but she loved one man who loved the sea.
Oh, yeah, you told me that, yes.
But it's like the exact opposite. Percy Jackson has to go to land. I don't know why I'm using this analogy, but Percy Jackson has to go to land, and pretty much he has to solve the problem his way, not Poseidon's way. And it's weird because you have this weird type of duology where you have Percy Jackson, son of the sea god, but kind of Poseidon's telling him to go away.
Yeah, I mean, there's like a lot of weird communication issues with Poseidon where he's like, well, you're my sons, but I don't really want you to do the thing you want to do. I have like plans for you. So Tyson really wants to fight, but he's like, no, I want you to keep fixing weapons, and I don't think that you're useful here. And then same thing with Percy, where he's like, oh, well, you must go and fulfill your prophecy on land, and I'll take care of things here. Even though it's doubtful that he'll take care of things there. And then he's also kind of like in the middle of convincing Percy that he should feel okay about what happened in Beckendorf because he made the decision to sacrifice himself and that it did help buy some time.
Well, he's just making sure that Percy Jackson doesn't have survivor skills and like look for Beckendorf in the middle of the ocean until he finds a spooky skeleton.
Or like stays behind or something like that, or has some sort of like way in which he tries to redeem himself for doing that or like allowing that to happen.
What Poseidon's doing is very deliberate here in that way, where he's pretty much telling Percy Jackson it's okay to let go because that will distract you on your journey. You're looking at Beckendorf that you couldn't have saved.
I have no idea what the prophecy says. I don't even really remember what we've already learned as far as the rhyming couplets are concerned. I know that he has to make a big decision.
So the couplet that we know, it was not really the couplet. The only thing that Annabeth has told Percy, and this is way back in the second book, which I like this, is that they have this big prophecy they kind of showed off in the second book, not in this last book like in Harry Potter. Where it's like, oh, yeah, by the way, there's this prophecy about you, Harry. I'm going to tell you it's right now at the end. Pretty much is that the big three have made a pact because a child of the big three, when they turn 16, will decide the fate of Olympus.
We know that part.
That's all we know.
There's other stuff, I guess, but we don't know it. Well, you know it, but I don't. That's kind of the point of the show.
Now, do I know it? I don't know. It's been a while.
You probably know it.
I can remember a lot of couplets, and I can remember a lot of poems, and I can remember a lot of prophecies. But whatever it is, it's going to be really vague and probably Percy Jackson's gonna know it till it's too late.
That's true. It's also the Oracle, so it's like vague and has double speak and double meaning. So who knows what it actually means?
Yes, and Chiron has to tell him, which seems like it's almost like the honor system. Poseidon didn't write him a note or anything.
Yeah, it seems weird that they would have waited this long to tell him, but here it is, the week before his 16th birthday. Now time to tell him.
That seems like something they probably would have saved for the last part of the Battle of the Labyrinth. Like, you get to learn the prophecy, and then it cuts to this book. So you have like a whole summer to think about it.
Yeah, no, they leave it all the way until here, where it's like, he's about to turn 16. Like, I told you, like, I thought it was kind of nuts how much they time jump. Like, he's approaching the end of the summer of his, like,
we're in the end
year
game
that he turned
now.
16. Like, that's totally bonkers to me, because I thought we'd have way more time, like, within the summer leading up to that. But now he only has a week. But I guess, I mean, we've talked about that too, that the time frame of books often aren't that long, generally speaking, unless they, like, do a big time jump in between and stuff, like they did with Battle of the Labyrinth, where they, like, cut through a lot of what happened during that summer.
See, the hardest part, though, with like time jumps is that they can get really annoying very quickly, and sometimes it throws readers off. I like that you have this weird type of like end game, almost, where...
Well, it raises the stakes, I guess, if it's so close to his birthday.
Well, yes, it does raise the stakes, but I think what it does here deliberately is it gives us already like an artificial like ticking time clock, because we know the clock.
That's definitely a Percy Jackson thing, where that's, like, you only have a week, you only have 5 days. Like, they give you sort of a timetable. And I think it's more helpful to have it so close to his birthday, I guess, than like having him be like, a month from now, you will make a big decision. Like, that's sort of different, I guess, as far as like the tension, the narrative tension.
Well, when it comes to it, in like a visual sense, you always have the ticking clock. That's why people love 24. You had the 24 hours to solve this problem.
You have a scale of what's happening, I guess. Yeah.
Yes, but also if you have like a month, Percy Jackson for half of it might be picking his nose. When you have 5 days, you have to be kind of proactive, or everyone's going to be dead.
Right, a lot of plot has to happen.
Yes.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And also to a kid, you have to remember this, and this comes to publishing as well, is that you want those kids to be pulling those pages very quickly. And to do that, you have to add like a weird like false sense of urgency, or the kids might like kind of like, I'll read the book slowly because he's got a whole month to do this, instead of, oh my God, 5 days. Oh God, I got to read quickly. Hopefully I'm missing something important, because you want those kids to plow through the book. That's why they have such a small word count, but also the spacing's a little further than normal, because you want kids to plow through those books. That's why Goosebumps books are so effective.
Yeah, I mean, I understand why they do it. It's just like, it amps things up, I guess. But it's kind of funny that they're like, oh yeah, there's this whole thing about the prophecy. Remember that? It's like really important to you and your life. Well, we're going to tell you now, when you're going to be 16 in like 7 days.
Well, to me, I think that's kind of like almost lazy writing. I feel like that should have been something that should have been established at the end of the last book. But we'll probably get something big about this, or knowing our luck, Chiron's only going to know half of it, and Annabeth's only going to know the last bit of it, and she's going to withhold it from Percy, or something dumb like that. Because like the last time she withheld a prophecy, something bad really did happen. Maybe she might have learned her lesson.
Yeah, I don't know why they don't tell him. You'd think that would be helpful for him to have the context of what he's supposed to expect. But sometimes I guess that like it's sort of the self-fulfilling prophecy thing of like, if you know what's going to happen, then what you do to avoid it, you cause it. It's like the Oedipus thing or whatever.
Oh no, it's a causality loop. It's like Terminator, just all Terminator Dark Fate.
No, it's literally like Oedipus, right? Because he finds out that he has like the whole prophecy about what's going to happen, and then he ends up making it happen.
Nope, he was not the one. It was his parents. They go to an oracle. They find out, like, oh yeah, so Oedipus is going to sleep with the mom, and he's going to kill
his dad.
So what they do is they pretty much like Moses him, put him down the river, and guess what? All that happens because their parents were afraid of what were to happen if they just left him to be a little baby. Everything would have been fine.
Right. Okay, but it's the same idea of like sometimes knowing a prophecy is actually worse because in your avoiding it, that's what causes it, kind of thing. So I kind of get why they got withheld it from him.
Yes, but also you have this other thing though. It's like Percy Jackson might not know what to do at the right moment. He might need it right when he needs it. Or maybe he might throw something off in the prophecy.
Like now is his time to make the decision
yes.
or understand the full thing. I guess there's a lot of like manipulation of information given to him, which is kind of frustrating. It's similar to the Harry Potter thing of like, well, you have a prophecy and it is about you, but we won't tell you for a very long time. And it's like, that seems kind of mean.
So here's the thing as well when it comes to, they actually have a good example of this in this chapter where by withholding the information, Percy Jackson might have made a wrong decision, which was, oh, maybe staying here on Atlantis, this is what my destiny is. Maybe this is the prophecy. If I stay here and help you, I'm able to make this big decision, whereas Poseidon knows probably more than he's saying. Like, someone else has to tell you, your mentor. And it's hard because you have that problem where I feel like telling the information, it's almost like damned if you do, damned if you don't at times. It's almost that weird fine line. Yeah, it can be like lazy at times, like depending on when you have it, but it could be more beneficial that Percy Jackson knows it right now than he probably did months ago because he might not have been able to interpret it. Or the worst part is what if he interprets it wrong? And those are some spooky things to think about, especially at the end of this chapter where Poseidon's like, do you still have that sand doll I gave you for your birthday? The one that I got at that souvenir shop?
Oh, right. Yeah, there's all sorts of like, just like, maybe not Chekhov's gun, but there's sort of like all this stuff that comes back into place in this chapter where they're just like, yes, the Nico thing, that's working again. You need to find out what he wants to do. Are you going to follow his plan? We don't know what it is yet, but still, they mention it. And then the same thing with the prophecy where it's like, there's still a sentence about it that we don't know yet. There's the rest of the prophecy. We've hidden it from you, but it is important. We'll find out about that later. And then he's like, there is the sand dollar, and that's also important, and you could definitely use that. We're not going to find out about that, what that is, but you do know that there's a sand dollar. So there's like a lot of these things that definitely feel important, but we don't know why they're important yet or exactly what they mean.
Again, that's very much like Chekhov's gun, I guess Chekhov's plot device. And it can be something that can be really hard to do at times. Sometimes it's all about pacing at times, so it's kind of that scary moments where you have to like look at it. Does it all come around? Sometimes, once again, I'm sure that Rick Riordan is an outliner, so he has all these things pre-planned. So he's just dropping in those little hints, but sometimes not so subtle, and that's okay because sometimes it's hard to get information out like this, but you get it all at once, especially at the end of this chapter, where it kind of just ends. Most likely, Percy Jackson's going to go to Camp Half-Blood now and confront Chiron about this prophecy.
Yeah. I talked to another father figure who's being cagey about his life.
There's a lot of cagey father figures in Percy's life.
Yeah, a lot of things are hidden from him. So, I mean, I guess that's generally it. There's like a lot of like stuff put into place in this chapter, but we don't quite find out yet what it is.
Yeah, and that's something that ends up happening. We'll figure it out. Who knows? Maybe soon, maybe later, maybe 16 chapters from now.
Yeah, it looks pretty grim right now, though. Poseidon is struggling a lot. He's sort of arguing with Tyson and Percy about how they can be well suited in the war. There's a lot of... He knows that some stuff is going on with the Titans over at the Titan camp, and that even though the Princess Andromeda explosion helped things a little bit, not as much as he would have hoped. Beckendorf is dead. A lot has happened. A lot has sort of been put into place, and we're going to, I guess, find out how that plays out later on, but right now, not looking too great.
So far, Percy Jackson's birthday week is kind of bad.
No, not great. Not great, yeah. I'd much rather like go to like Applebee's and get a free appetizer or whatever.
You want to go to Applebee's? Oh my God.
No, I said I'd rather do that than what he's doing. I don't like Applebee's. That's how much I would rather not be a demigod.
Oh my God. To be fair, I'd be like, I'm going to go to Denny's for my birthday and get that free Grand Slam. There's a bunch of like free places that you should just go on your birthday. Just print up one of those lists.
I always forget to do that. I should. The only free thing I've ever gotten on my birthday was a sister.
Well, that could be hit or miss, can't it?
No, it was good though. It ended up being.
Well, for my birthday, I found out I wanted a puppy, but then I got my sister.
Yeah, not quite the same.
I love her regardless. People go, oh no, Zack likes the puppy more than the sister. Yeah.
She's a good puppy though, so I understand.
So B, what is the name of the next chapter?
The name of the next chapter is I Get a Sneak Peek at My Death. Oh, great. So this is probably about the prophecy, huh?
Spoilers.
He's going to have to die. Is he going to have to die? Is it a Harry Potter thing where he has to die?
And then be resurrected by a marble and a pebble and whatever in between?
Yeah. Wait, what? There's a wand and are you talking about the Deathly Hallows?
There's the wand. There's
a resurrection stone in this
stone,
cloak.
yeah.
Yeah, all those things. Yeah. Not those.
What about the resurrection Sharon Stone?
Agree to death like an old friend. Anyway, so, great. The typical old prophecy where the protagonist has to die. Love those. Love a good death prophecy.
Well, at least he knows the person that's in charge of death.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's only chapter 3 and he's already getting an idea that he might die. I mean, he had that feeling early on in being a demigod also. It's kind of inevitable to some extent that you might have a young death. It's dark. It's a dark thing.
Well, you're assuming that that's the prophecy. I think what it's going to be is something much more horrific. Maybe it might be a fate worse than death.
Probably some messed up mythology stuff that I don't even know about. But anyway.
Yeah, it's as if like Kronos has this weird scythe that splits the soul from one's body. Wonder what else it could do.
So yeah, I guess he's going to find out about the prophecy. He's going to go back to Camp Half-Blood.
For some reason,
that's the extent of my predictions right now. I'm not going to jump ahead too much. I don't really know what else is going to happen.
In my head, I'm thinking about when Chiron's going to show him his prophecy. I always think about when you got every single Disney DVD, it'd have like that weird thing that has the previews. Now here are our featured attractions. You know what I'm talking about, right? That weird screen that would pop up.
It's just like that.
Do 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 do. B, do you want to read some listener emails?
Yeah, we got a really long email. Do you want me to read this one?
No, we'll take it in turns, because B, this is going to be like Atlas. I'm not going to let you carry this burden by yourself.
Okay, here we go. Whew, you kind of gave me a heads up about this email, so I'm we'll see.
So I think we should put this in precedent, because we've gotten a couple other huge emails recently, which we're getting to, but some of them are like really, really long.
Maybe spread them out throughout episodes, because they're long, and we'd be here forever.
Guys, everyone, please keep them shorter. I think 3 paragraphs is the max you can guys do. I hate to use this precedent.
It's more likely to read on air, because sometimes we're like, that's half the episode.
Well, that's not the half the episode, but you have to be considerate of the other people putting in messages.
Right, exactly, yeah. And we want to be able to answer and be like thoughtful in our answers, so.
Yes.
All right. Hey, Zack and B, I finally caught up and am sending you this message that I have had in my drafts for weeks. I've been taking down all of the things I wanted to say during different episodes, but on principle, I waited until I got caught up to send it. Get ready for a long email because I have almost 100 episodes of thoughts to share. Do you want to read the next paragraph?
Are we going to do this okay, we'll do this popcorn style. I call you. Do you remember popcorn style, B?
You just made me have a flashback. I remember.
First thing I would like to say is that thank you. I was so stoked to find a high-quality literary criticism podcast about a young adult series other than Harry Potter. It's also new for me to listen to a podcast where the hosts are my age. I get all of your references and love all of the idiosyncratic
syncrasies.
Thank you. That come from being 20 years old. You are a light in the world and deserve all the thanks. Ooh, I like that.
I'm 26, but anyway.
I'm 24. But I like
Close
that.
enough.
There's your tattoo, eat, pray, love. It's, you are the light in the world and deserve all the thanks. That's what you put in your kitchen.
It sounds like something like a yoga instructor would say.
No, it sounds like something you would tattoo to like a really basic girl.
Both of those things. Here's a fun story for you. When I was in middle school, I thought all fantasy books and movies only came in trilogies. Thank you, Lord of the Rings, Star Wars, and Indiana Jones. I was so bummed and confused when I finished The Titan's Curse, and literally nothing was wrapped up. I thought it was the end of the series. You can imagine my delight when I stumbled across Battle of the Labyrinth in a Target while on vacation with my family in Florida. Needless to say, I cried multiple times and was completely useless to my family during the entirety of the trip.
Man, just imagine being completely useless on a family trip like that. Oh, man, that's great.
I mean, I read The Wide Window during a family trip, so I understand.
Oh, yeah, no, I've read a bunch of books. I think the weirdest book that I read was, because I always like to read books. I remember when we went to Mexico one year, I brought this book called, I want to say it's called Maplecroft. No, wait, that's a sequel, whatever. It's about Lizzie Borden. She fights Lovecraftian monsters.
Oh, okay. I read the book Geek Love once when I was on vacation in Florida, and I'm not going to get into what that's about, but you could look that up. It's real dark and messed up. Do you want to read the next paragraph?
Another fun fact, my name is Rachel, and growing up, my best friend's name was Anna Beth. Fortunately, we didn't know a boy named Percy, but we did share some crushes throughout the years.
Aw.
Oh, man.
Cute.
That just sounds like, I always think about, the Ed Sheeran picture of him with like his friends, and they look like Harry, Ron.
Oh, yeah.
And Hermione.
They do, a lot.
I just listened to the episode where you guys critiqued the chapter in which the Battle of Labyrinth actually happened. You both expressed some issues on how the battle was anticlimactic and not as high stakes. I've come to agree with you, but I do have one point of input on the question on why Kronos wasn't there. and it would have been a better reveal in what was Rick's doing. I don't know exactly why, but it seems to me as if that was the plan, that Luke/Kronos was supposed to be the vanguard of the battle. I can see that. And having the whole reveal during the battle, but Percy and the gang interrupted that plan. I'm not sure why exactly Rick didn't do that, but it did look it up. He specifically had the original plan interrupted, maybe to give Annabeth a moment of despair in a way that connected with the loss of Pan, maybe specifically to make the battle less impactful so that there could be a bigger bang in the final book. Who knows, but it seems unintentional. That seems like the weirdest thing to have him in the vanguard. Like, I'm just gonna wait and not to be the spooky guy at the beginning. Like, if you're gonna have a big push,
I kind of get that a little bit, where it's like, oh, he was supposed to show up but then didn't because of like the way they interrupted their plans or something, and then it's like a big reveal. But I feel like if that reveal was a part of the battle, that would have been very effective instead of him like sneaking off and then finding that out separately. I don't know. It just, I mean, we talked about this before, but
it's like a James Bond thing. Why tie him to a slab and have a laser pointed at his crotch? Why not just shoot him with a gun?
Yeah.
Like, it just seems kind of lazy. And yeah, we've already talked about it. We've already had our grievances, but I can understand how that is, and that's fine by me.
Yeah, no, I could see the motivation for not having him involved in the battle. I wish there was something else then that made the battle feel like more interesting, I guess. It just like the way that it was written seemed anticlimactic. So it wasn't even just the specific plot. It was also just like the way it felt to read.
Yeah. It kind of just ended in a whimper, not a bang.
Zach, these last few episodes, you were trying to lead B to guess what Nico's plan for defeating Kronos might be, and I was screaming at my podcast device for you to stop. When I first read it, it was so out of the blue, and I didn't want you to spoil B by leaving them too closely. Thankfully, B had no idea, and I breathed a sigh of relief. Still don't know, by the way, so thanks. I'm oblivious.
For all I know, I could have spoiled it. B, what's going to happen is they're going to interstellar it. They're going to go fly off, and every 7 minutes is like 7 years. So eventually Kronos will just die of old age. Got it. Okay, that spoiled it for you. I'm sorry. Next, I was super curious to hear what you guys think about Heroes of Olympus. I know all the teeny boppers. Well, I haven't heard that thing in so long.
Yeah, my dad loved to say tweeny boppers. He said that a lot. It was his favorite phrase.
Have been begging you guys to read it because they love it so much. But let's be honest, it was my least favorite series of all Rick Riordan's. This is probably because I read Percy Jackson in middle school and Heroes of Olympus didn't come out until I was almost out of high school. Same as with me. Felt more to me like Rick Riordan read a heck of a ton of fan fiction during the interim and then wrote a whole series dedicated to a fan service. If you think of the ships from Percy Jackson are annoying, get ready for all the ships. Of course, I've read them all and will continue to reread them as they are part of the world that have such an investment in, but I'm very much looking forward to hearing your thoughts.
Interesting.
I mean, I've only read the whole series once. The problem, though, is I remember reading the third book, I think Mark of Athena, and stopping in high school for a while, and then finally picking them up during college. So my perception of the books is a little different because I had read all of Percy Jackson multiple times. And then reading that, which is kind of different, but then it's going to be interesting because that's the case where I've read them, but vaguely, and B's not read them. So this will be an interesting type of...
I'm not sure how I'll feel. Well, I guess we'll have to see.
Yeah, I guess I'll say this more. Percy Jackson's more like kid-driven, whereas Heroes of Olympus is more young adult.
Yeah, and it's coming from what I understand, a different perspective, like you said, like the fan fiction-y, almost trying to do more of the interpersonal relationship stuff. I don't know. I might like it. We'll see. I'm dreading the next.
We'll find out.
Lastly, on the case of Susan, yes, I'm bringing it back. I want you to know that there are more Susan fans in the world, but B, I completely agree with your arguments in the context of the time in which the Chronicles of Narnia were written. Lewis was using an illustration to critique people who neglect their faith to pursue worldly things. I do not think his intention was to say that she went to hell because she liked boys in makeup. However, though, the lens of that time we are in now, which plays a huge part because we live in these times, it is completely misogynistic, and it is necessary to point that out and explain it to people. While it makes sense in context and helps explain things, it does not excuse the behaviors. I love Susan as a character, and I also love the Narnia books, but its attempts to create a biblical allegory for children. So yeah, I kind of agree with that. Like, he probably didn't like intend to specifically be like, hey, Susan is evil because she likes makeup, but like it was a weird like moralizing of worldly things, which can sometimes come across as weird and misogynistic, especially because the worldly things happen to be like female coded or whatever. So that was part of it. Like, they didn't like criticize, like, I don't know,
her fighting prowess and things like that.
Yeah, they didn't criticize Peter for liking football or something. I don't know. Well, he wouldn't like football because he's British. I don't know, for liking soccer.
He would have liked the British football.
Like, they didn't get criticized for like those kinds of things. It was just like, oh, she likes pantyhose and makeup, and it's like, okay, I don't see how that's a productive thing to criticize.
Yeah, that's all you, because I haven't read the Chronicles of Narnia. I was about to say the Chronicles of Riddick. I've seen all those movies.
I mean, I haven't read them in a really long time, so. Again, this is just sort of what I'm remembering from reading them and doing like discussions in like my children's lit class and stuff. But it's like a pretty common complaint about
all I remember
those
about
books.
those books is the part where Santa Claus arms small children with weapons.
Yes, he does. He's like, hello, I'm Santa. Here's a sword.
B, if they made another American version, it would have been Charlton Heston giving out rifles and handguns to kids. I think that's all I have to say. Again, thank you for giving your voices to a world that deserves some credit and critique. Thank you for making me think more deeply about the series that I tend to have a loyalty for, almost as bad as all of the Half-Bloods have loyalty to their parents. Thank you for your consistency and dedication to quality. You guys rocked my socks off, and I'm glad I caught up before you started The Last Olympian.
Thank you. What a thoughtful, nice message.
I think this might be one of the really nice emails, especially at the end, that we've gotten, because I think the two things that we focus on, actually, this is like the crazy thing, like I felt bad when we didn't release for 2 weeks, is our consistency, and I do spend some time making our episodes sound really good. So that's really nice to get that appreciation for that. Not to say that all the other podcasts, there's some other really good Percy Jackson podcasts out there now. I think there's Demipod and then Floor 600.
Yeah, I heard about Demipod. That was on Reddit somewhere. Yeah, I haven't actually listened to them. It'd be cool to maybe see like how they tackle the books differently and things, or if we could like have them on or something.
Yes, that might be something that would be interesting to have on. And for us, I think consistency is the biggest thing we focus on, because how many times have people listened to podcasts and get really invested and all of a sudden people just stop doing it? It gets annoying after a while. So we did get one more email. Hey guys, this is Alex. I really love y'all's discussion on the Lightning Thief musical yesterday, but especially when you were talking about the lighting and not realizing all the puns you made. Here are some of my favorite ones. B, we're talking to Rob about the lighting cues and all. Zack, well, we'll get it into because it's my time to shine. Zack, I feel when it comes down to the Lightning Thief lightning director, I really, really did shine. B, because of the minimalist set, it has its place to shine. I also included a meme for B that will enjoy it for something 2-3 and enjoy on 3-3. Keep staying mortal, Alex. B, I'm sending you some dank meme right now. It says, the fearsome deadly children of the big three. We got a tree, a guinea pig.
So that's Talia.
And
that's
a corn.
Percy. Wait, is that Nico?
It has to be Nico. He's got to be corn.
Wait, why is Nico corn?
Because he's delicious.
Is there... Did I miss a pun or something?
Because he's a cornhead? Because he's corny.
Is that it?
I don't know.
I feel like there's something I'm missing.
I don't even get the last one, but I get the other two. It's like a Captain America moment. I got those references. Unless he secretly is the Scarecrow in A Wizard of Oz.
Yeah, maybe there's something with Nico that I don't know yet, or is.
Or he's got corn power.
Please explain your meme. I almost got it.
Or he's got corn powers. He shoots corns at people.
Yeah. All right. Maybe I'm too dumb to understand your memes.
Or maybe it's margarine.
But thank you.
So unfortunately, we didn't get any Apple Podcast reviews this week. That's okay.
Yeah. So we did get a few big emails, but we're gonna probably read those as we do other episodes, so that way everybody gets a chance to say something, and we can give you our thoughtful answers.
Yes, we can have a lot of thoughtful discussion. This was a really exciting episode. I am so excited for the next part of this, and the next, and the next, and the next, because this is a really fun book. It's so depressing. I love it.
I'm looking forward to this book and also dreading it, because I know things are just going to get more and more intense.
Someone's going to die. Someone's going to have fun.
Probably. There's definitely going to be death. It's going to be dark, probably. It's the last book. Things are going to happen. A lot of stuff is going to happen.
Maybe I should send you like a slide whistle just in case something terrible happens. We just go, boo.
Just like play it like, and then someone died. Well, I mean, already Beckendorf died, and that was like the first chapter. So really, we're off to a great start.
I'm just hearing George R. R. Martin cackling in the background. Oh, you sweet summer children.
Yeah.
So, B, where can they find you?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at bkellygorman, and you can find me on Tumblr at twinpoetry.tumblr.com.
If you want to follow me personally on Twitter, you can follow me at Suda41. That's SUDA41. If you want to follow our show on Twitter, that's at halfblood_radio. If you want to email the show and send us any cool messages, you can email us at radiocamphalfblood@gmail.com. We have a patreon.com/radiocamphalfblood where you get episodes early and you get some other bonus content that we're working on. We have t-shirts available at TeePublic, so go to www.teepublic.com/radiocamphalfblood for some cool merch. And this is really exciting. Well, guys, I'm Zack.
I'm B.
And let's keep staying mortal. See ya.
Bye, guys.